3 years ago, my partner and I bought our first home on a peaceful little street, the kind where neighbors smile too much and lawns are always trimmed, and for a while it felt perfect, especially since the older couple next door were absolute sweethearts, always chatting over the fence and bringing over baked goods. But about 18 months later, they decided to move and we ended up buying their bigger house and selling ours to a Polish couple who seemed completely normal. At first, quiet, polite, nothing strange, until the midnight banging started, heavy thuds that didn't sound accidental, followed by music blasting so loud the bass shook our walls, and every time we complained they apologized like it was a mistake, but it kept happening. Then one night the husband pulled into the driveway with his car completely wrecked along one side and casually blamed a parking garage pole, even though the damage looked way worse than that. And not long after he called us in a panic, claiming burglars were on his property, turning away his security cameras. So we looked out and actually saw two men moving around his house, one adjusting a camera, the other near the back door. We called the police immediately, but before they arrived, the men disappeared without a trace, and strangely, our neighbor wasn't even home when officers showed up because he had parked his car blocks away and walked back, which about a week later, the music returned louder than ever, and suddenly we heard an engine revving in our yard and watched in disbelief as his car tore through our garden, smashed through our fence, and slammed straight into his own front door, while two men jumped out and began hauling expensive electronics from inside like it was some kind of staged robbery. Police arrived quickly and detained a man claiming to be our neighbor, except he spoke fluent Dutch, something our real
neighbor never did, which led to a chaotic chase and multiple arrests.
And hours later, our actual neighbor showed up at our door, beaten, bleeding, covered in defensive wounds on his arms, refusing to tell police anything, but eventually admitting to us that he had cheated on his wife, and she had allegedly hired people to hurt him. He begged to stay with us, but we drove him to the hospital instead, thinking it was finally over, until at 1 a.m. our doorbell started ringing, non-stop, and there he was again, looking terrified, pacing and glancing over his shoulder until a car screeched up behind him, and his furious, wailing wife dragged him away, and we never saw either of them again. And just when you think that's the worst of it, in 2017, a teenage girl living in a split-level home in Montreal began hearing shuffling and breathing outside her ground-level bedroom window at night, and though her plastic blinds were closed, she could sometimes catch faint movement reflected in her mirrored closet door, like someone shifting outside. But her parents dismissed it as imagination for years, until during a windstorm in 2021, her father stepped outside and saw a man standing completely still right outside her window, staring in through the gaps in the blinds. And when confronted, the man fled over the fence and vanished. Police were called, but nothing came of it except a neighbor who reacted oddly, defensive and angry about the warning, leaving the girl haunted by the possibility that someone may have been watching her through those tiny openings for years. And in another case in Alberta, a young woman moved into a cheap rental house and soon began hearing faint laughter and strange noises coming from the basement walls, not the basement itself, but inside the walls. And one night while babysitting her baby sister, she heard heavy footsteps downstairs, followed by a chilling shoo through the baby monitor and a loud crash. She grabbed her father's unloaded rifle in pure panic, rushed to rescue her sister, locked themselves in a bathroom, and called for help. And when police searched the house, they eventually discovered a hidden room concealed behind a built-in bookshelf in her bedroom, containing food wrappers, bottles, a switchblade, and a fresh apple, along with a tiny drilled hole perfectly aligned with her bed, revealing that someone had been secretly living inside the walls, watching her sleep and live her life without her ever knowing. And in all three stories, there were no ghosts, no supernatural forces, just ordinary houses and ordinary neighborhoods hiding something far more disturbing, because sometimes the real terror isn't something paranormal at all. It's the thought that someone very real could be standing just outside your window, hiding behind your walls, or living closer to you than you ever imagined.